Mark had always been more like a brother than a friend. We'd grown up on the same street, shared video games, awkward teenage crushes, and Friday night pizza traditions. But something had changed this summer. Maybe it was the looming shift into college life, or maybe it was how Olivia, his mom, had started looking at me a little differently. I was 18 now. That seemed to matter to her. It certainly mattered to me. Mark was gone for the weekend. Football camp upstate. I'd borrowed his old copy of a textbook, and I figured I'd swing by to drop it off. It was late, maybe around 8:30, and the sun had just dipped below the rooftops. Their porch light was on, casting a warm amber glow across the steps. I knocked, expecting the usual brief handoff, maybe a quick word with Olivia before heading out. She answered the door barefoot, wearing an oversized gray t-shirt that fell just above her knees. Her hair was tied up in a loose knot, a glass of red wine held in one hand. "Well, well," she smiled, leaning against the doorframe. "Didn't expect company tonight." I held up the textbook, suddenly feeling like I had walked into something. "I didn't understand. Just dropping this off for Mark." "He's not back until Sunday," she said, stepping aside. "Come in, if you're not in a rush." There was something about her tone. Casual, but not careless. Almost inviting. I stepped inside. The living room was softly lit by a single lamp in the corner. Jazz played quietly from the Bluetooth speaker on the bookshelf. It smelled like lavender and vanilla. Olivia's scent, subtle but unmistakable. I followed her to the kitchen, trying not to stare as she poured herself more wine. "You want something?" she asked, reaching into the fridge. Whatever's fine." She poured me a glass of cranberry juice, slid it across the counter. "You always were polite," she said, watching me over the rim of her wine glass. "Not like Mark and his loudmouth friends." I chuckled nervously. Guess I had to balance you two out. We sat on the couch, the same one where Mark and I had once played hours of PlayStation. But the atmosphere now was nothing like that. Olivia sat close enough for her thigh to brush mine when she shifted. I kept telling myself this was normal. She was my best friend's mom. She was just being nice. But my eyes kept catching on the curve of her legs, the way her lips curled at the edge of every teasing remark. She looked over at me with a soft smile. "You've grown up a lot. I still remember you running around in those ridiculous cargo shorts." I laughed, but the warmth in her voice made my skin prickle. "Yeah, I guess I'm not that kid anymore." Her fingers grazed my forearm, lightly, just for a moment. "You're not," she said. "You're really not." I took a sip of juice, trying to focus on anything else. She leaned back, wine glass resting on her stomach, and looked up at the ceiling. "It gets quiet around here lately. Mark's always busy. And after the divorce..." Her voice trailed off. "You doing okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "Some days. Others not so much. Nights like this are the hardest." I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just Mark's mom anymore. She was Olivia. Lonely, complicated, beautiful Olivia. The dim light softened her features, made her seem younger somehow. Vulnerable. She turned her head to me. "You ever feel like you're caught between two versions of yourself? Like, you're supposed to be this new person, but the old one keeps pulling you back?" "Yeah," I said. "All the time." She reached over and touched my hand, fingers curling gently around mine. I didn't pull away. There was a long, aching silence. Neither of us moved. The air between us felt electric. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, not moving an inch. "I can go," I said, my voice low, uncertain. Olivia's eyes didn't leave mine. "You don't have to leave yet, do you?" she asked softly. My breath caught. I could have stood up. I could have walked out, pretended this was nothing, but I didn't. We didn't say anything for a while. The room felt smaller, the space between us charged with something unspoken. Olivia shifted, standing up slowly, and walked toward the other side of the living room. She dimmed the lamp even further, leaving only a faint glow that barely reached the edges of the room. When she came back, she didn't sit in the same spot. She sat closer. Her voice broke the silence, soft and slow. "Have you ever been with someone older?" I swallowed, my throat dry. "Not really." She tilted her head. "Not really?" "I mean, no," I admitted, trying not to sound completely out of my depth. She nodded, eyes lingering on mine. "That's honest." My heart was pounding. Everything in my body told me to be cautious, but her presence kept pulling me in. The way she looked at me, like I wasn't just some kid who hung around her house, like she saw something different, something she wanted. She set her wine glass down on the table, then leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "You were always sweet to me, even when you were little. But now," her hand brushed along my knee, inching up, "now you're kind of irresistible." The breath caught in my throat. I didn't move, couldn't move. She leaned in further, her lips grazing, my cheek first, then hovering. "If you want to stop me," she murmured, "this is the time." I didn't stop her. Her lips touched mine, soft, slow, unhurried. There was no urgency in the kiss, only curiosity, heat, and something deeper. Need. I kissed her back, unsure of what I was doing, but knowing I didn't want to stop. Her hands slid up my chest, then around my neck, pulling me closer. My own hands found the small of her back, tentative, trembling. Every nerve in my body was alight. The room, the couch, the low hum of music, all of it faded beneath the sound of our breathing, the heat rising between us. Her perfume filled my senses. Lavender and something warm, something human. She whispered things I can't even remember. Clearly now, things meant only for that moment. Her fingertips traced lines across my skin like she already knew every part of me, even though it was all new. There was a pause. She looked at me then, her hands resting on my chest. "We don't have to go further," she said. "This can still be just a kiss." I searched her eyes, but I didn't say anything. I leaned in again. That was the answer. The rest unraveled, in slow motion. We didn't rush. She guided me, led me gently, like she'd done this before, which she had, and like I mattered more than just the thrill. I remember her breath catching, the way she bit her lip, the quiet sighs in the dark, the way her nails dragged softly down my back. I remember my own heartbeat echoing in my ears, my mind half lost between wanting and worrying. It felt wrong. It felt perfect. It felt like I'd crossed into another version of myself that could never go back. When it was over, she lay there. For a moment, her arm draped across her stomach, her breathing still a little uneven. I sat beside her, the silence suddenly heavier. She reached for her glass again and took a slow sip. "You can't tell anyone," she said, not looking at me. I nodded, still trying to catch my breath, my thoughts tangled. She gave a small smile, almost sad. "You're not a boy anymore." That line hit harder than I expected, not as flattery, but as fact. I stood eventually, dressed in silence, unsure what I should say, or if saying anything would ruin the thin thread of whatever this was. Olivia didn't stop me. She stayed on the couch, her eyes following me as I slipped back into my shoes near the door. Outside, the night air was cooler, calmer. I walked down the street like I'd just woken up from something, some strange dream that felt too real. The house behind me was quiet, still glowing. My phone buzzed. "Mark, you around tomorrow? Let's chill." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. There was no way things could ever go back to the way they were. The next day, Mark texted again. "Early. Come over, man. Let's catch up. I got stories." I stared at the message, heart pounding. My fingers hovered over my screen before I typed something vague about errands and family stuff. He sent a thumbs up, but I knew he could sense something was off. Mark always could. I spent most of the day lying in bed, thinking about the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Olivia, beneath the low light, her lips pressed to mine, the way she looked afterward. as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I couldn't walk into his house now without feeling like a traitor. I couldn't meet Mark's eyes without thinking about what I'd taken from him, even if he didn't know yet. But I kept going back. At first, I told myself it was curiosity, then it was need, then it was just routine. Once a week, sometimes, twice. Always at night. Always with the curtains drawn. Olivia would open the door like she was expecting me, sometimes wearing silk, sometimes nothing at all. The warmth in her voice from that first night started to fade. Our conversations became shorter. Less about feelings, more about flesh. She didn't ask about my classes or how I was sleeping. She never mentioned Mark. She never kissed me the way she did that first time. She didn't even look at me the same anymore. Just took what she wanted and let me lie next to her afterward, hollow and wide awake. I told myself I could stop, that the next time would be the last. But I kept going. One night, I sat at my desk and opened my notebook. One I hadn't touched since graduation. I didn't know what else to do with everything boiling inside me. I betrayed my best friend. I don't know if I love her. I don't even know if she sees me as real anymore. Was I trying to feel like a man, or just trying to be seen? I don't recognize myself. The ink smudged where my hand shook. I closed the book and shoved it under a stack of clothes. It unraveled not long after. I was walking home when I saw Mark's car parked outside Olivia's. I froze. The front door was open. Voices echoed through the hallway, sharp, angry. I crept closer. Olivia's voice was unmistakable. She was on the phone, and I heard my name. I heard her laugh in that dry, amused way she did sometimes. Then, silence. Mark stepped out of the house like a shadow, his eyes locked on mine before I could turn away. "You?" he said, voice breaking. "You?" I didn't know what to say, didn't even try. He crossed the lawn fast, hands clenched. "You slept with my mom?" "It wasn't—" He shoved me hard in the chest. "Don't even try to explain it. People say fights have a rhythm. This one didn't. It was all noise, shouting, fists, something inside me snapping. We rolled on the grass, angry and ashamed and broken all at once. He hit me once in the jaw, hard enough to blur my vision. Then he stood up, breathing heavy. You were supposed to be my brother, and just like that, he was gone. I didn't hear from him again. A week later, I went back to Olivia's one last time. She answered the door like nothing had happened. Same robe, same wine glass. I stood there for a long moment, unsure if I wanted to walk in. "You shouldn't have said my name," I muttered. She leaned against the frame, unbothered. "I didn't think he was home." "You didn't think. About him. About me." She sighed, looked past me at the empty street. "I told you not to fall for me." That hurt more than I expected. I nodded slowly. "You were right." She didn't stop me when I turned around. Didn't say goodbye. Months later, I still walk past their house sometimes. Mark's car is never in the driveway anymore. Someone else mows the lawn. Olivia's curtains are always closed. I try not to think about her. I try not to think about who I was in that house. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice. "Come in, I'm alone." I should have turned around, but I didn't.